Welcome to The Local Lens, a great way to stay connected to what's happening right here in our community. This program replaces our previous series, Morning Brew, and builds on that same spirit of connection. In each session, we'll sit down with leaders and organizations to highlight the programs, projects, and initiatives making a real impact in our area. Our goal is simple: to generate awareness, spark conversation, and celebrate the work being done to strengthen our community. Thanks for joining us, and welcome to The Local Lens. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today at The Local Lens. We're right here at the Mill in Manistique, Michigan. Our guest on this month's Local Lens is Trent Bellingar, who is the director of the Schoolcraft Delta ISD. We're here to talk all things CTE. So with that, I'll ask Trent to introduce himself. Tell us a little about who you are, where you live, and what you do.
Okay, sure. So Trent Bellingar, Director of Career and Technical Education at the Delta Schoolcraft Intermediate School District. So I live in Gladstone. I have a 10-year-old and a 8-year-old that go to Escanaba Public Schools. So before I was the CTE director, I was the CTE supervisor. So what the CTE director does is I'm in charge of all finance, staff, and programming for career and technical education, which is high school trades and industry type classes. We have 8 programs in Escanaba. We have, I just go around the building in my head, so if you see me looking up, that's something. We have automotive, building trades, machining, welding, product design and development, IT essentials, careers and education, health occupations in Delta County. We have about 325 students from all the high schools there that come to our center. Here we have building trades, automotive, welding, and health occupations. We have about 105 students this year from Big Bay and Manistique High School. So before I was the CTE supervisor and director, I was the welding teacher for 8 years at the Delta Center, and then I worked for a year at Coquitlam as the welding teacher there as well.
Really interesting that, so many times these programs happen within our community, and while we might know they're there, we're not always aware of the projects or programs that students are working on. So like one of the things I spent about an hour this morning looking for was because I remembered I'd seen it last year, was the Blue Collar Tour, which maybe you can talk a little bit about that. It was really exciting for Manistique to be selected as part of that last year.
So that leads to a bigger conversation about social capital. So really what we're trying to do in our programs is help students who might have a small social circle or sphere of influence around them to know about what career and opportunities might be available to them. So one of the many things that we do, but one of the things that she just talked about too is the Blue Collar Tour. Is the Wyoming Welding Institute, I believe it's called, has a road show. They brought in a couple big semi trucks, and a whole bunch of students of theirs to engage with our high school kids to talk to them about what pipeline welding looks like, what welding on the road looks like. Because a lot of times, Manistique, Schoolcraft, Delta, we're bedroom communities. We have so many trades, people who live here and go outside for work and come back. So just to show them what that looks like, and also show them again what a post-secondary option might look like as a career and as education. So other things we do to try to increase that social capital in the kids is work-based learning. So all of our programs have examples where kids take our class for a certain amount of time, then they go out at a job site and work for somebody. So for our health occupations classes, we have students, I can't remember if it's first years or second year students here, but they go to Schoolcraft Memorial Hospital and rotate through departments. So we've had them in surgery, we've had them in ER, we've had them in ambulatory, we've had them in billing, fundraising, all different areas, because they might not think that healthcare is a great thing until they say, oh my gosh, there's a back end of healthcare, because they don't want us to do icky things, but they might want to still do be involved in it in some way. We had a really cool instance of students, this was a couple years ago, they were doing their work-based learning at the hospital in the emergency room, and a patient came in. They were actually able to do CPR first aid on the patient, and the patient expired, but still they had the opportunity to do that. And sometimes nurses never have the opportunity to have a death before they spend all that money in nursing school, and they'd be like, oh, this is terrible. And so these students were able to experience that, and they were all in. They loved that was part of the job, is to help people stay alive, so it's just a cool opportunity. So like in welding, students this year they made a handrail for Big Bay to Knox schools, but in the past we've made handrails in different parts for Pro Ampac. Again, so the kids work with the engineers at Pro Ampac, design a product, make a product, and they go and actually install it on site. And then building trades, we have the house that we're building there, so the kids are on site all the time doing those hands-on skills. So all of our programs have a lab here at the high school, but we try to get them out as much as they can, because you're always a better expert if you're literally outside the building or a different zip code, right? So the teacher's a teacher until somebody else says it doesn't make sense sometimes. So that's kind of how we try to build that social capital, bring in outside forces to help kids have better understanding what the world looks like.
So your goal is to keep people from moving out of Manistique. I came up here from Ann Arbor, and I was a nurse in surgery at St. Joseph Mercy Hospital. And I had a girlfriend who would say, "Oh, that's a really easy job. They all survived." And I said, "I didn't say that. You did." And it's hard work. But Mike, what I like to hear from you is, where are these people going to go after they get educated?
Right.
Are they going to be able to stay in this town? Because, having lived most of my life in Ann Arbor, Saline area, and you come up here, it was a rude awakening. Mm-hmm. I like the scenery. I have a place on Lake Michigan, but I'm thinking about these young people. Where are they going? Are they, can you help them find jobs here?
So that's why in small communities.
$1 million question, right?
Yeah, right.
How do we hold our young people?
Right. So two questions.
Well, I figured that right away. I was only here a month, and I go, whoa. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 2,000 people.
Right. So there's two questions.
Other than the snowbirds.
The two solutions is kids leave, or kids stay, or I guess three solutions, or they leave and come back, right? So we need to make sure that whatever their choices are, we have options for them. So we would love for them to stay, but we understand that there's opportunities other places too. So like through Invest UP, there's opportunities like the Return North. So when they do go away, then we need to go and educate them of what there is here. There's so much small business that people don't realize that that's a good career path to have. My dad owned a business when we were growing up. And I think he and my mom did a good job of not wanting me to do that, to be a small business owner. Go to college, go get a job, do something. So it was a welding company, so I went to college for welding and then landed where I am. I'm happy where I am, it all worked out. But I just think we as a community need to better engage with our youth. And it's okay to tell them you need to leave, but also educate them with what opportunities we do have. Because if they don't know, they're gonna leave. So that's what we want to do too. But also too, we want to make sure that the local people are engaging, and it's hard because a lot of times in small businesses they can't slow down to go fast. They need to slow down and think, okay, what's like the meeting we just had. A lot of people in the room are over 50, and I won't say that that's senior Victoria, but a lot of people in the room at these meetings are over 50, and
You have to pace yourself.
Right, and there's a gap. There's people.
Surgery, you can't always do that.
Right. There's a gap of people who aren't owning businesses, who don't want leadership roles, who don't want to do that, and we need to make sure that our kids are willing to fill those roles because they're going to be able to be promoted quicker because there aren't people who are willing to take those roles on in management.
But that really happens through this type of programming, in my opinion, Trent. Like when we interviewed CTE students, do you remember the student who talked about reinstalling or taking apart the flashing because he realized he had not done it properly? Mm-hmm. So students have a great amount of pride in the work that they do, and I think it takes adults who are willing to work alongside of them and build those skills. This student, he indicated that he overheard the building trades teacher or instructor talking to another student about the flashing that needs to be installed before the shingles. Mm-hmm. I'm not a builder. And so he said a couple of things that I thought were really interesting, that he had overheard it. And then he said he took his work apart without being told and redid it because he wanted it done right. And I don't think when we're out in the community, there are enough of those stories. Like we talk a lot about, or we hear a lot about, this generation is this generation is that. But when you get into a classroom or into an area where you're interviewing these CTE students, they're really impressive. They have strong moral character. They have pride in their community. They have pride in the work they're doing. And I think that comes from actually working on a project, right? Like I saw more this year than I've seen in the past because of this home, right? And you can probably speak to that about the job site.
Yeah. When we go there today later, if you're able to join us, the kids take a lot of pride in what they do. The pride that they take may not be a great quality, but they still have pride in what they've done, you know. And what we try to really, it's easy as a teacher. Many of our teachers are right straight out of industry, so they may not have full teaching degrees and experiences to be upset when there's mistakes. But that's the whole point. You know, we expect there to be mistakes, just like in any classes. So if we put the drywall in wrong and the flashing in wrong, whatever, we're going to rip it out, we're going to do it again, and we're going to take a loss. That's the cost of education. But yeah, the kids are really taking a leadership role because it's, like you said, we used to build modules in the shop and then tear them down, and then they do it again, which is fine. It taught those skills. Every single student learned every single thing, which is good education. Where sometimes in the homes, you know, this kid might specialize in the drywall, and this kid might specialize in electrical and various things. You may not ever get to touch all of it, but now they're able to see it from literally the ground up. And all of our programs have different variations of that, like the handrails we're making or the different projects we're making. And then in health occupations, working with patients, you know, so all of those hands-on experiences. And again, to the community, to engage with those kids, because when we give them something to do, they'll feel important and they'll feel valued. So when the community like Limestone and Invest UP and Victoria's and all the people work together with those kids, then they feel valued. So I think that's the biggest thing that we as a small community need to do, is make sure that if we don't want our biggest export to be kids, make them feel valued, and maybe they'll come back, or maybe they won't leave.
I think we all have an interest in the room in affordable housing. And can you talk a little bit specifically about your housing project and how that might help this community in another way? So helping the students, but also providing
Right.
a house.
Yeah. So twofold of helping the kids understand a career option, and then also bring housing, right?
Yeah.
So the goal of that is building and partnering with Build UP is to try to bring housing that's affordable to median income homes, right? It's really hard to do because we'll have about $260,000 into the house. Luckily, we don't have labor because the kids are free. So we'll be able to sell it at a little bit of a lower price than what might be market value. We could maybe sell it towards more of a appraised value type situation. But yeah, that's our goal, is to one, create experiences for the kids, then to two, start building some of those houses. And I don't know if it's a weird, I hope this happens here too. I'm not sure, maybe Dave would know, but in Escanaba, there were no spec homes being built. There was one company building spec homes, one family. We built the spec home. It's going to be for sale here in the next month. And there are at least 9 other spec homes now happening, which wasn't happening for 10 years. So we're really hoping that kind of level of, let's see how much money they make, might help some of these contractors start doing the same thing. So it's working in Delta. I hope it can work over here too.
I know this is getting into the weeds a little bit, and I've chatted with a few people, but can you talk a little about how you're going to price that home and how you're going to select the owner?
Yeah.
And then as a follow-on to that, will there be any deed restrictions on the home?
Yep. So when we sell the houses using Build UP funds, so Build UP gave us $200,000 for each house to use as seed money, and then we pay it back when it's done. And then the idea is to have it be rolling, just continue to help us plant that seed money. So we're a stipulation of selling the house is they have to be a resident of the county, and they have to. We're supposed to endeavor to build a house that a person making 120% of the median income housing can afford. That's really, really hard to do when it costs me $260,000. So we're going to do our best to make sure that can do that. So that's our goal, is to make it affordable. We still have to have to buy lots, and we had to buy tools, and we have to buy things. So there's going to need to be some profit on top of that. But we know that it's not going to. The hard part is legally limiting who can purchase the home. Right. And not putting too many stipulations in there where it's not, somebody doesn't want it, you know. So that's going to be our board's hard part, to figure out what to do, and how we go about selling. But what we'll end up doing is some type of sealed bid situation where you could put in a bid. You have to have proof of residency, of the county. Like it's a primary residence, I should say. It's primary residence because we don't want to be in an Airbnb.
No investors.
We don't want to be
Yeah.
an investor property. It has to be a primary residence home. And they have to have $1,000 down, and you have to have proof of financing, and then your bid. And then the board has full discretion on who they award the bid to. It doesn't have to be the highest, doesn't have to be the lowest, it could be the middle, it could be however they decide who they want to award that bid to. So it's up to our school board to make that decision. So, yep.
It's the school board, like the ISD.
The ISD
Yes.
school board will make the decision on which bid to. And they might choose to go highest bid. They might choose to say, hey, if we have 7 bids at $300,000, we're going to do a lottery. It kind of depends on what those bids look like when they come in. Yep.
And what about, again, this is kind of in the weeds, but what about a deed restriction? Like, what if this family or person turns around and sells the house in 6 months for double? Like, will they restrict that? Because I know some of the programs that we participate in have like a 5-year payback period for the perceived value, for example.
Right.
So
Yeah, there's really nothing in there, that's why it's up to the board's discretion,
Yeah.
because you can look at some of those things about who's buying and be like, kind of make some inferences from that. But yeah, there's no, correct me if I'm wrong, Ann, are there anything about a time frame of owning the home?
I don't think there are
Okay.
any restrictions from a Bill UP standpoint,
Okay.
but as Jennifer alluded to, it's pretty common to sometimes put like a 5-year deed restriction when there's funding coming from NICA
Yeah.
or some other agency
And then it
to ensure that the family doesn't flip it and
because it would be hard
Yeah.
not to if you
Yeah.
knew there was a significant amount of value, right?
protecting that
Yes.
discounted price.
And that's the discussion we had at our entity, is trying to figure out how do we do this, because what we don't want is because it has to be within that income, right? So we can have an income and have a whole lot of money in a bank account. So, but how do you limit that? Like, we don't want to be the police on that. So we don't want to tell somebody no who might be retired and that's the perfect home for them. So it's really hard to make sure that we fall within what we want to do. Because what could happen is let's say somebody has $2 million in the bank and they have an income of in the 120% range. They buy that house and then they sell it, but then they're selling a home and making a big profit. So they're getting a bargain, then making a profit over here, so they're getting double profit. So I don't think that's a business we can be in and try to chase. So we're just going to do our best to build what we can, add what we need to on there to continue, and then sell it at whatever price we can get.
Maybe that's something we can take that conversation offline and work on some of that, because adding a 5-year lien that reduces by 20% a year is not a huge undertaking. And you just record it and the chasing kind of happens automatically, right? Okay. So maybe that's something we could talk about as a way to ensure that it's a family and that they're going to live in the property, and eventually they'll definitely realize those gains, but it would be sad to see it flipped in a year or two. So
Maybe a right of first refusal or something like that.
something, yeah, great point. Yeah, the expert in the room. Yeah, Kate will do the chasing. Right? Yes. Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways that could be accomplished without creating too much work for anyone, and really protecting that value in the home. And then talking a little further about that, what's the plan? I don't know if we really prefaced this with how many lots do you have and what are we thinking in the future?
So my goal, I have 13 years till I retire. I want to build 13 homes in both counties.
Nice.
So that's my goal.
Well, now you're on recording.
Exactly,
We're going to hold
that's fine.
at your retirement party if it's 12.
Right. We got to get 13. So that's my goal, is to do that. So we bought. We ended up buying, with David's help and Victoria's help, we bought 7 lots over on Otter Street. We combined them to be 3 lots, which are now, I think they're 96 by 125. So before they were 46 by, that math's not right, 92 by 125. They were 45 by 125. And they're just real narrow lots. It was hard to do things with. So we currently own 3 lots. We hope to have this house for sale in November of next year. We hope over the summer to have the groundwork done and footings done, so we can start in the second home and be finishing the first home in September. How my planning usually goes is not that great, so that's my goal, is to have those kind of things happen. So then right next to that we have the 3rd lot, so then we're just kind of moving down. So we looking back, we designed this home. The home we built now we built the exact same home in both counties. It's 1,400 square feet on a crawl space with a 2-car garage. The house we built fits in really nicely in the subdivision we're in Delta County. And not that it doesn't fit in where it is now, but it's just kind of like the elephant in the room house. So we're going to do a little bit different of a house. The second home, we're going to do a little more of a ranch style that fits in with the community a little bit more. Things we learn is, I'm not a developer, I was a welder. I've never done a built house before. So I thought that's a pretty design. We built that house and we found out like, boy, the footings were really hard to do. There's a lot of corners. So the next one's going to be a nice rectangle.
Okay.
So it's way easier to do. So we're learning those kind of things. So we're hoping within, it depends on how many kids we have, and it's hard. Again, we have 2-hour-long CTE classes for all of our CTE classes. So the kids meet at the high school, take attendance, they all get over to the job site. It takes about 10 minutes between when the class starts, they get there, then they work for about an hour and a half, then they put all their things away, then they go back to class. And then 3 hours later, our next shift shows up. So we only really get about 3 hours of work time per day. So that's why it's going slower than probably a contractor would expect. But we have a lot of people, but we're still getting, they're not super efficient people. They're kids, they're learning. Where in Delta County we have 66 students and we have rotating classes for 7.5 hours. So we have 66 man hours a day every single day for 7 hours. So we're just going faster. But so that's my goal is. I would like to start looking for more lots soon, because eventually we're going to run out of lots.
Mm-hmm.
Do you also consider rehabs, or is that really not off the plate?
If we could, we've done those in the past. In the past, we partnered with Habitat for Humanity, and we did those as well. So that's something we could do if we aren't able to find the lots and do what we want to do. It depends on if we're going to continue with Build UP, if that's an opportunity, or what sales price versus. What's our input into it? Sometimes a rehab can be like a, oh God type moment, and we don't where a new build is like, let's just go with what the print says, So we don't want to get ourselves in a situation, but I'm not ruling it out. Yep.
And then I know that at one point we chatted, or maybe I just latched onto the idea because I liked it, but about a duplex. Mm-hmm. So expanding the footprint of the units available by doing a 2 or a 4-plex.
You're not crazy. We did talk about that.
Okay, good.
So the first lot and the second lot are 92 feet wide. The next lot is an odder, like pie-shaped piece, trapezoidal shape. So that one lends itself to a duplex.
Okay.
So that's kind of if as long as it falls within planning and zoning, that's kind of our plan. The questions I have there, I don't know, but I don't want to be a landlord, so I just want to make sure I can just go away, just sell it. So I don't know what that would look like in terms of owner renter type situation. If we can't, if it has to be a prime full residency home, what does that look like for the other half of the home?
Sure.
So those are things I don't know.
Okay.
Excuse me, I came in later, so is this program for Manistique as well as Escanaba?
Yeah, I have 2 different centers, so I have a completely different program over there and a separate one over here. So
this program would be all through their individual grades, the whole, school year?
Yep. So 10th, 11th, and 12th graders.
Well,
Yep.
what I like about this, since I've been here now 10 years, I'm hoping that these kids will latch on and get a job here. It will expand this community, and because, like I said before, coming from Washtenaw County, where we have over 200,000 college students, I know a lot of them, they take off, because a lot of them are studying to be professionals,
And I think
law, medicine.
like I said, in the UP, we have a interesting bedroom community opportunities too, where when we interview our student of the year students, a lot of them love living here, but they realize that the opportunities might be somewhere else. So like with the union,
that's why they leave.
right?
They can't find a
But
job.
the nice thing about the unionized trades that we have, I was talking with is it Cole Goodrow?
Yes.
Cole Goodrow today, he works for Aldridge Electric, and that company is based in Chicago area and employs 60 people in Schoolcraft County.
Right.
And they just go places and make stupid money doing data centers and things like that. But they all live here. 60 people live here, have a residence here, and then they go out during the week and work. So I think there's just helping kids understand that those opportunities are there. Traveling nurses, different types of things. Where if you want the lifestyle here, if you want the water, if you want all the woods, you can still live here on the weekends and maybe go somewhere else and work too. That's an option.
And 2 of the students that we interviewed for Student of the Year were going to work for Aldrich. So,
And-
really great opportunities for those students, but the opportunity for us to retain their permanent residence. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and those kids were connected with Aldridge because there's 60 people in the community of 2,000 in the whole county that work there.
Right.
So that's 60 families. So there's that social capital that we talked about. But also too, Jake Goodrow and the company every year come to the career fair that's put on at the high school and engage with those youth. They give away a TV. So how much better way is there to get kids to engage is, hey, we got a TV we're giving away, So they engage with those kids and then they see what those opportunities are and see that the money that they can make and they can stay here as their roots and grow in other places too. So I guess my point with that is they've engaged with the kids. They donate to our CTE programs. They show up at the career fairs. They're always ready to answer. They donated rebar for the house project. All those things is the kids are seeing the value, the adults are seeing the value, and it connects.
So when their students are through their senior year, do most of them then, they've gone through the building trades, are they ready for like apprenticeships, or do they need to go to Bay College, or where are they in their career preparation after?
That's the hard part. So Bay College has nothing for building trades. They have things for welding. They have things for health occupations and auto. There's programs there for those 3. So those are good options. But a lot of times kids nowadays are seeing less and less value in post-secondary education in the traditional sense of post-secondary education. What value is it to them is what their question is. So if I'm going to pay money, what am I getting out of it? Where a lot of times now, because a high school kid used to be a dirty high school kid, nowadays it's not. Like, it's a value to an employer to get somebody who's young and doesn't have bad habits and things like that too. So a lot of them are finding apprenticeships or just like going with Aldridge, which happens to be a union shop, but not always union shops. But there's a lot of people who are finding value in their naivety, but also in their skills that they do have too. So there's multiple paths that people are taking now.
And tangentially, can you please explain to me, if you graduate from a Delta County high school, you can go to Delta for free?
Yeah. So if you live within the region where the college is, so Bay College is in Dickinson and Delta, so it's free. But that Michigan College Guarantee is last dollar in. So what that means is, if you get a scholarship, if you have early middle college, if you have other things that are that will help you pay for college, that Michigan College Guarantee is the last thing in.
I'm more interested in why Schoolcraft isn't part of it.
So
That's what I'm curious about.
Okay, so I asked, because at one of the meetings we were in, somebody said, why can't we get cheaper tuition? You could, but then you have to pay for millage. And the millage was 1. It was a 1.0 millage, and that's not going to happen. Because it's hard to pass a millage for anything, So for a few kids to go to Bay College is probably just not going to happen. A few people to go to Bay College.
But it is significantly reduced because of that act, right? So you pay the out-of-state portion, I believe, if you're going to Bay.
Correct.
So there is some funding
So,
available to reduce that cost for students in
out of
that
district.
risk. Yes.
Yeah, so there's a reduction in cost. They'll pay something, but there's still going to be some balance. Where Delta County and Dickinson County kids, there'll be no balance. Yep. But the thing about those is that's legislated, so it could go away tomorrow.
Right.
So those are things we don't want to ever count on. Kind of keep it hush hush with kids, because don't count on that, because it could literally be gone tomorrow, and there's nothing you can do about it. So still plan that. We always tell people, plan for it to not be there, so that if it is there, then you have the money still sitting there. But yeah, that's one of the things we struggle with. Like I said, Bay College has great programs in auto, welding, and health occ, but there's nothing for the building trades kids, so they don't have an option. They have to either enter a union apprenticeship. Northern has a construction management, but a lot of times that's like a next step for kids. They need to get their first step first. NWTC, we're starting to partner with NWTC to offer dual enrollment classes for our CTE kids. They have building trades classes, but again, I get them for free, but if they were to continue their education at NWTC, then it's out of state again. And I think there's some reciprocity between border counties with Wisconsin, so that might help, but there's really no other option for the building trades kids.
Talk a little about the student you mentioned this morning that works for Holics, because I think those are real examples of success stories.
So it's 2 examples. One, we had a student, Nick Frankovich, the son. He while he was with us in building trades, he did work-based learning with, I think it's Holics. And when I saw that this summer, I was at the where did we get the sandwiches today?
Upper crust.
Upper Crust. I was at Upper Crust, and he was there doing plumbing work with his journey person. So that was perfect. That's what we want. We want them to leave our program, have some experience, take that and take it into a career. We had another one where students in our health occupations classes have the opportunity to get their CNA certificate. We had a student who got their CNA, got hired at the hospital. The hospital then paid for her to get her CMA, which is Certified Medical Assistant, not to be confused with Certified Nursing Assistant. So they paid for her to do that. She happened to leave after she got that, but that's okay, as long as we're bettering our options, right? But so that's just another one where we took a certification, had high school experience at that location, and then got the job.
And I wasn't aware of how many students do you know the number in HOSA that are working in the hospital? And it was super engaging for me to hear a student talk about being able to do CPR on a patient. Those experiences, they don't come from a textbook or a dummy in a classroom, right? You just can't replace that. So that was a really great, I was surprised at how much experience they are really gaining through Schoolcraft Memorial.
It's crazy that that we don't have a whole lot of health occupation students. It's a college level class in high school. Where it's kind of that more academic ended class of our 4 classes here. But it's amazing the opportunities that they can have. We have a student who I think was our student of the year this year, who's working at Schoolcraft Memorial long-term care. She's making $26 an hour as a CNA, as a senior in high school. That's an incredible amount of money. So like those $26 an hour. So like that's fantastic for a high school kid. So like those opportunities are there for them to, because they were already in there, they feel comfortable where they are. Because that's the thing, right? Is if these kids these days, but they need to feel comfortable where they are in order to want to be there. We have so many kids. We had Mark C. Perna come the other day and do guest speaking to all the juniors in Delta and Schoolcraft counties. And the level of anxiety to get those kids just out of their school and do something that they didn't know about. It was like, oh, go listen to this guy, and you get out of school for 2 hours. It's a big college, and they're just like, oh, I don't want to leave school. It's like, go. You need to go, and you need to listen, because you don't know unless you try. So that was an outstanding experience too.
It really was. And the thing about that's such a key point, because at Limestone we have multiple interns across either the summer or in Sault Ste. Marie in our branch there. So what we find is, you need to walk alongside them. You need to take them with you and encourage them to join you in sessions and things like this. And it brings such value to them because they're able to participate in things they would not otherwise do. And one of the things that Mark said, which I thought was super interesting, was when students file in, he always stands at the door, and he said, he gets all this head down, like just, who's this old guy over 50, right? Just heavily focused on getting in, finding a seat, and kind of blending in, I think. But when they leave, he stands at the door, and it's all about high fives and fist bumps, and some students even hug him. Like the natural engagement that happens with somebody who believes in them is just amazing to watch. And we don't see that often enough because we're not in the classroom, right? So we see that a little bit at financial reality fairs, right? Like they come into the room, 13 stations set up. It's all about finance, budgeting and credit scores, things they don't know a lot about. And they're nervous. Where can I go first? And before long, they're really engaged and active and laughing and enjoying the experience. And I think students need more of that, right? More of that engagement with the community and engagement with professionals and the trades. And so
it's hard because there's so much noise in school nowadays. There's so much happening. There's sports, there's this guest speaker, there's that, there's all these things. There's buses aren't free. We got to pay bus drivers. We got to find bus drivers. We got to get them to places. And I always call Manistique Island because it's 60 miles to anywhere. So like it takes you guys an hour to get anywhere, and it costs $300. For me to get the kids to Escanaba for a competition, or to get them to Marquette for a competition, it's $250. Whether I use school train or whether I use a school bus. We use school train more often now because it's just easier because I don't have to be back by time. But that's a barrier, right? Is getting those kids equal opportunity, even though you're 60 miles from most hubs, so.
Which to me is like $250. Like that's a barrier, right? Like, so plenty of times whenever I hear that, I say, send me the bill. Like,
Right.
we'll just pick up the
Right.
transportation because not to make it a small amount of money, but it is if you're trying to do it regularly and if it's taking opportunity from students, like sign me up to pay the bill, right? Like we want our students to see the Mark Perinas of the world,
Yeah.
right?
But the other struggle is with living where we live. I get the emails from all the Manistique High School, and I get so many emails every day, like, please excuse these kids for baseball, these kids for volleyball, these kids for softball, these kids for tennis, these
For track,
So like, it's like, oh God, because it takes so long to get everywhere. Like, how do we ever teach?
Yeah, they still have to go to school.
Right. So it's just a struggle, a balance between getting them out of the classroom, making sure they're getting what they need, and they're not falling behind. So lots of opportunity. Just we need to make sure we braid it nicely with what the high school wants. Something I wrote down. Do you care if I take one?
Please.
Okay. So one of the things that I've always been struggled with is we only offer 4 CTE programs, and 3 are trades based. 1 is kind of academic based. We don't have a whole lot of students, so in order for me to offer another program. So let me back up. In order to be a CTE teacher, you have to have minimum of 4,000 hours of industry-related experience. So it can't just be a teacher. Like it has to be somebody with experience in the field. So we have to find that, and usually those people don't like doing that part-time. So we should have to try to do a full-time class. So our automotive program is part-time, but I have him fully employed in Delta County for the afternoon. So it's hard for me to start a new program with a limited number of students, a declining population, and an aging population. But what we can do, without having to pay for a teacher, which costs me $100,000 a year with roll-ups and everything, we can do what's called a less than class size opportunity. So what that means is it's kind of like a long-term work-based learning opportunity. So let's say that somebody wanted to go into business. That Catherine could say, hey, 2 hours, so they would come to Catherine and say, hey, I would like to learn about business and how to run a business, how to do marketing, all these things. They could come and spend their CTE time 2 hours a day here at the mill and learn how to do whatever it is that you do for business. And my dad was not a good businessman, so I don't do anything. But they would sit with you, learn, because we have competencies that would have to require that they learn. So as long as they're learning those competencies and in some form or fashion, they could spend 2 hours a day their entire school year, a semester, a quarter, at a local business that wouldn't maybe be able to support a full-time program for me. So there's those opportunities too. In Delta County, I've tried 3 different places, only one bit. That's about how my life works. So what we have, insurance is moving forward with that. So we have Mike Sands at State Farm. He's going to take a student because there's an insurance SIP code. A SIP code is a set of competencies that forms a class at the state level. So he's going to take a student on and teach them how to be an insurance agent. And we're going to provide them content so they can then take their insurance test so they can be a registered insurance agent. So that's our goal. So that's one kid. So we have to get Mike a annual career authorization, so he's a certified teacher for as long as he wants to do it. So there's opportunities in this community to do that too. I just would like to explore those as well. Question?
Yeah. Have you met with any other vocational schools in Michigan, maybe to get some of their insight on how they branch out? And because I experienced when I was in high school, I went to a vocational school for entrepreneurship and marketing. So after lunch, I spent 3 hours of my day at basically a hub center for the entire county to come. And so I experienced other schools, different teachers, that sort of thing as well. So have you tried reaching out and maybe seeing if there was a way for us to maybe get a hub kind of with all the teachers in one area where all the schools can kind of bus there and make it a little bit easier to have it all in one area where the kids can spend 3 to 4 hours a day together working on that?
In an ideal world, yes. So our
They
center
have that in the Sioux.
Yeah, our center here is at the high school. So we have Big Bay and Manistique come here. In Delta County, we have Hannahville, Bark River, Escanaba, Rapid River, Mid-Penn, Gladstone, all come in there. The problem is distance. So it's hard for them to get. So I don't like just providing barriers to your question, but what's hard is that so let's say Gladstone, for example, they come to our class for 2 hours. They have to apply for a waiver for an hour of transportation because it's not instructional time. So they spend 3 hours out of their 6-hour school day with us, which is great. But then they also are required to take science, English, and math. So those other 3 hours are done. So they have to take those. So there's not a whole lot of opportunity in Delta though, because there's some closer schools. So like Escanaba is right across the parking lot from us. A lot of their kids, because there's not that lost hour, they take multiple of our classes. So we have had like Bark River. Some schools do take multiple classes, but again, the problem here is just distance and the population size. Where did you go? I'm just curious.
I'm actually from downstate, so
Yeah.
I was in Paw Paw, Michigan, but
Okay.
it was Van Buren County.
Van Buren, yeah.
So
Yep. Robert Smith was the director there.
And
Yeah.
I went to, so they had in what they called it the VOTEC. So they had like agriculture, marketing, entrepreneurship, cosmetology, school, all the different kind of careers that one would want to try to pursue, and it was only offered junior and senior year. And then if it was something you were interested in, they promoted taking your classes earlier on so that you could take those ones that were required for junior and senior year to try to develop it in there.
Yeah, and it's interesting that the reason we talk about Van Buren, it's interesting how we're funded. So we're funded through a millage, so thank you all. So we have a 0.9 millage for vocational education in Delta and Schoolcraft counties. It was 1, and when the Headley agreement happened, and I think it was 91, they rolled it back to 0.9003. So anybody who had a millage for anything education-based was locked in then. I can ask for more, but I can never increase it more than to get to 1. The bad, what I've been frustrated about is CTE is not equal across the state. So because we had a 0.9 millage, we're stuck there forever and we can never go above 1. Newaygo County, Van Buren County, some of these bigger counties downstate, they had a 3% millage. And so Newaygo is an example. It's the same size as Delta Schoolcraft, 6,000 students, 6,000 students K-12. 2,000 high school, they have a 3% millage. So I get it about, our budget is $3 million, theirs is triple that. With the same amount of students. So they have what you're talking, they have 25 programs with the same amount of students. So we have about like I said, $3.5 million budget, most of it's millage based. And we run about a $30,000 surplus every year. So we're saving some money, but it's hard to start a new program at $30,000, So we've been really fortunate in the past to get some, great grant funds and things like that. So, things we've done at Delta worked out is we had our welding shop in Escanaba for the Delta kids was in Escanaba High School across the parking lot, separated from all of our other programs. So because I was a welding teacher, I fancied that program. So I said that sucked for kids. It sucked for me as a teacher because they weren't getting the services that the kids within our building. Like you talked about the center, you just get better services in a center. So we got the Daniel J. Kobasic Foundation gave us $500,000 so we could build the Daniel J. Kobasic Memorial Welding Facility. We applied for congressionally directed funding through Senator Peters' office, and we got $1.4 million from Senator Peters. So we ended up building that center for about $200,000 out of our pocket. So we're just trying to always find things, and have great people in our communities to help connect us to the right things so we could do good with the very limited funds that we have.
Was that money from Peters? Did you tell him beforehand you voted for him?
I didn't have to.
Yeah. I'm hoping that he will be challenged. This next election.
He's not running again, which is
Oh, he's quitting?
Yeah, so we actually had Senator Peters' people came through and walked through their facility, and so did Bergman's people came and walked through our facility. Actually, Bergman himself came and walked through our facility. So we had good bipartisan support because it was a wild thing. It took about a year and a half to be on the budget, and then they cut from the budget, and you're like, oh God, please don't cut us, because, and then you find out that it seems simple. And then they say, oh, but there's all these 3,000 strings attached to this federal fund. So like we were to the point, we'd already started our project. We'd broken ground, and then we found out the details of what we needed to do, and we needed to have an archaeological review of the site. And we're like, we've already dug. So we had to have the state historic preservation office sign off on our thing, and that was very concerning because if we wouldn't have been able to get that $1.4 million, we were in trouble because we've already started. Because we were told you get the money and then the stipulations. So we got everything. So that was fine.
I applaud you because the UP is definitely at a disadvantage as downstate. And the county that I've lived most of my life, you know, the big three, Ford does a lot of apprenticeships and, GM. And we don't have a lot of big industry up here that you rely on for funding,
And that's what, so
And I applaud you. I mean, it's just really, you're bucking the wind all the way.
what our programs are nice is we have advisory committees, so we have to get to engage with industry, so they can kind of help us. But you're right. So what happens in small communities is all of you probably get asked to do 1,000 things by the same 1,000 people that that are asking. So you're right. It's hard when you have a couple of anchors of industry that are asked to do so much.
Yeah.
But I think before we wrap up here, I want to circle back to that because you and I have talked about this because we're in such a rural area, being able to work directly with students in our shops. So we've talked a little about like IT. So we have an IT director, and IT is a fast growing profession, but we don't have IT here at we don't have an IT class at CTE.
Right. Yep.
So being able to take them into our businesses and work with them, that's how the grind ran as well, was as a work-based learning site. So there were objectives that had to be met, and we submitted reporting at the end of every week. And the instructor, I think, came once a month and observed, but it was not overly taxing on our organization, the requirements through this work-based learning program.
Yeah, so spread the word that that's an opportunity to get kids engaged, and it doesn't have to be like a whole year. So like if it's going sideways, just let us know. We have a work-based learning coordinator who comes every 90 days, minimally 45 days, and does a site visit. So and we can pull them back out of the job site and give them some more training if it's not going well. So don't feel like you're like, oh God, I'm going to take on this employee, and if I can't fire them for the whole school year. It's like, no, we can take them back and get them something else to make sure that they're going to be successful next time. And that's sometimes what we want, is them to not be successful. They can learn from that and then be successful going forward.
But also, when I look around the room, this is the group that you see at most of the volunteer boards and different activities throughout the community. So having a student, inviting them along creates that next generation of business owners and volunteers. So I think there's really a great opportunity in this work-based learning. And I know we've talked about it, and it just really, we haven't gotten off the ground with it, but we will.
That less than classes opportunity, I think, is the only way we're going to be able to grow programming with the funding that we have.
Yeah. So I wonder, is there a list of professions? Oh, so
Yeah.
I think that would be super interesting.
There's 54 zip codes in the state, and within those like business is a really broad one, right? That could be real estate, that could be business owner, that could be anything. It could be banking. So there's some really broad ones that can make it work for whatever industry we have.
Okay. All right.
Did you know, though, that Schoolcraft County is actually the poorest county in the whole UP? So we really have, it is. It's the poorest county. Well, look it up.
Okay.
That's what we do know too, that the average age is 58. In Schoolcraft County too. So not that that's a problem. We just know that that's a fact. So we just need to be planning further out for what does that look like for the county.
I believe we are one of the 4 counties in the UP that are experiencing an estimated growth in population. Is it 4 or 6, Victoria? 4. So that are experiencing a growth in our population. So, that's something to be proud of, and everything we do really matters. So thank you to all of you for everything that you do. Thank you for being our guest today.
Yeah.
Really great information. Does anyone have any questions before we wrap up? So for anyone who wants to join us, we're going to hop on the transit and go tour the home that the students are building on Otter Street. So
It did snow today, and there's no grass. So just FYI, it might be muddy. So
that's a
very right.
yeah. So I've been over there. It's a really great layout. It's great. I think the students will be there.
They usually get there about 1:15, so they might be
Okay.
there when we're wrapping up.
So they'll probably be there as we leave, but it's a really great opportunity to see the project and walk through it. So we hope you'll all join us.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you.
So much.
Yep.